Let's do our world's tier list. Okay, world's tier list. It is time, boys. It is time. Okay, here it is. NA teams on top. Got some piss randoms in the mid here. And then everyone else here. There it is. And we're done. Okay, cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There you go. That's it. Okay, let's actually get into it. So there's gonna be a tier of did not watch. I only watched 2 series all year from Beyond Gaming, so I guess we'll rate them. Didn't watch Red Canids, be all these teams. So my best team in the world, FPX. I still think they're the best team in the world. I know that they lost to EDG in finals, but I think that like just in general, this team has performed the best over the games that I watched. I mean, they absolutely smacked WE. They had been looking really good coming in. And I don't think that finals just is like the end all be all where they are just an automatically worse team. I do think EDG is good, but also like EDG got the benefit of being able to actually lose in LPL playoffs where FPX didn't get to lose a series, right? Like EDG got smashed by WE essentially, and they still were able to just go forward and continue playing. Second best team in the world, or the team that I'm going to have second here is actually going to be Dom1. Now, I think that EDG is good. I think I could have put EDG second, but I just believe in the Dom1 gaming clutch factor. Like, I actually feel like this team performs well when it matters. Showmaker's a beast. Canyon's a beast. Barrel's looking a lot better than he did at MSI for sure. I think Con is very underrated, and Ghost I'm pretty low on. I think Ghost is like pretty whatever. But I'll put Dom1 second. And then my third team is going to be EDG. Super strong team. I do think this team randomly has like pretty big underperformances. We've seen it a couple times now. Like them losing that series to WE was pretty shocking, and definitely feels like if they don't show up on the day, they have a much lower level than like, for example, if FPX has a bad day. Like FPX's bad day is them almost bringing EDG to 5 games. EDG's bad day is them losing to WE. So that's pretty much how I see it. Actually, bro, let's just do this. I don't want to do S+. I just want to do S, A, B. Like, what's the point of S+, really, right? C, D, NA teams. Okay, and fourth for me is RNG. This team is super underrated right now. Like, this team could win the tournament. I think that all these teams are teams that I think are potential world's winners. Okay, I won't call it NA teams. My bad. The way that I'm viewing this is like S tier teams are teams that I believe can win the tournament. Where I don't think that that's the case for the teams that I'm about to put in A tier. I think A tier teams could have a deep run, but I don't think they actually can win the tournament. I think RNG is actually really good. They obviously had a bad series versus LNG, but overall they're a really strong team. They won MSI. They would have probably had a much better position and got automatic double elimination if they didn't have to go to MSI, because when they came back, there was issues with their hotel and quarantine, so they didn't get to practice. So they started the split 1-5, and then after that, they only lost 2 more series for the rest of the split. And I think they ended up like, yeah, 9-7 in series. And the game versus LNG just felt like they just had a random off day, the things that they are normally best in the world at, which is like being around Baron, knowing the perfect decisions at all points, their team play, getting Xiaohu ahead, like all that stuff just wasn't as crisp as it normally is. So these are like the 4 best teams. These are the 4 teams that I think can win Worlds. My next pick, Mad Lions in A tier. I don't think Mad Lions can win Worlds personally, but I think they could get close. They definitely have some issues like with their early games, but their mid game is insane. They make very few mistakes. They do have champion pool issues, but Armut has generally found enough ways to cover that so far. I think El Yoya is really good. Humanoid's really good. Bot lane is generally good, but sometimes has like rough ones. And then Armut is flippy, but it seems like he kind of has that clutch factor. So Mad Lions is my 5th best team in the world coming in. Like, and the way that I'm doing this is not just like this tier is all the same. I'm doing it literally like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Next team, T1. T1 was actually pretty impressive when I was watching VOD reviews. I just feel like they have like some random disconnects where they just like randomly int games, and I don't think they're as solid as the teams above them. They can definitely beat one of these teams in a best of 5, but I would not put them as like a favorite to win. Like, I don't think that they like, I think there would be like a 40% chance to win versus like, or maybe like 35 to 40% chance to win compared to like 60 or 65 for these teams. So this is actually where I have my A tier. I don't think I'm going to go too much deeper in A tier. I'm going to make use of all these tiers. So my next team that I think has a good chance would be LNG. So I think LNG is decently strong. They have to rely heavily on Tarzan. They're definitely a Tarzan focused team. This guy is a beast jungler right now. Tarzan literally looks like one of the best junglers in the world again. I would say there's a chance that he's just the best jungler in the world right now. Like, him and Canyon are going to be fighting for that spot, but I think Tarzan had so little to play with a lot of the times, and he was actually just smurfing games. And the thing that I really appreciate about Tarzan is his like ability to carry and like read games from a jungle position, right? When Tarzan gets into a game, he makes biggest use of his jungle counter pick. A lot of people are just like, oh, you want Lee Sin? Okay, well, I guess I'm just going to play like Xin here. You want Trundle? All right, man. Well, I guess I'm just going to play like, well, I guess it wouldn't be Olaf. I guess I'm just going to play Viego. You know, like that's kind of how people just view jungle. It's just like perma trade-offs. Whereas like Tarzan's the guy that started bringing out Diana jungle. They started Diana Yasuo. He was able to pick Zac if it's a good game. He counterpicks with Nidalee. He counterpicks with Graves. And it seems like he always performs on every champion that he plays. So this guy is actually really insane. But I think that their bot lane is just pretty good for Worlds standards. They're not anything super special. Icon can be good. And Ale he's pretty volatile as a top laner, but he's really good at his specific carries. So that's why I'll have LNG here. Oh man, this is gonna piss people off, but yeah, I don't know what to say, man. The more I watch Fnatic, I do not actually expect Fnatic to perform that well at Worlds. Personally, I'm not really a believer in them. So Gen.G, I think Gen.G is like pretty boring team. They're like Korean Rogue. They're pretty good at what they do, and they're probably better than the rest of the teams here, like naturally, but I'm actually not that big of a fan of them. I think that this team will probably end up making it out of groups and then losing in quarterfinals, if I had to guess. That's like the tier that I'm looking at here, which I guess is like what this would be, right? I mean, if the bracket works out where like the best teams in the world are not cannibalizing each other and we don't get like FPX versus Damwon in quarterfinals or something, which obviously can only happen if one of these teams gets second in their group. But as long as like these teams don't cannibalize each other, I would think that the way that this would generally work is like semifinalists, finalists, quarterfinalists. So next, I'm actually going to put Fnatic in this tier. They're the low end of the spectrum. High highs, low lows. Team is pretty volatile. I'm a little bit worried about champion pool because it feels like Fnatic is decently figured out. Like people that draft against Fnatic, it seems like the idea is like, don't let Niski play Ryze or TF. And even with the changes like and stuff, I still think that these champions are going to be really high prio. Like even with Ryze nerfs, I would assume that they're still going to try to play the same style. But I'm a little bit worried about the way that they play. And this team can obviously lose hard. The biggest thing that I always say about Fnatic is they lack discipline. They don't know how to cut their losses in fights. It's literally just like everyone goes in and then they fight until they're dead. And if you do these types of fights consistently when you're ahead, you'll just lose games to better teams. Like we saw Mad Lions in finals almost come back from like a 10k gold deficit at, what was it, 15 minutes, some like that. The game was completely over and Fnatic almost threw it because they kept on like opting into like horrible fights and losing really hard. And I think that the other teams that are above them, I don't know, I think that they're just gonna find a good fight at some point and Fnatic's going to end the game there. Upset and Hilly are the second best bot lane in the world. I mean, bro, they literally lost lane to Karzi and Kaiser, and they also lost lane hard to Hans and Trimby. People actually forgot that. People didn't realize that Fnatic's bot lane got solo killed multiple times by Hans and Trimby. Obviously they stomped Rogue 3-0, so everyone's just gonna be like, yeah, they're just a way better team. Hans and Trimby actually performed in that series, and then they just got like 4-man dove and the game was over. So this is where I guess it gets a little bit controversial. I have actually not been that impressed with PSG, so I'm actually going to do something a little bit controversial. I know most people would probably put Hanwha Life here. I'm not convinced by Hanwha Life. So number one, I think Morgan just sucks straight up. I really think that this is just only Chovy. So I'm gonna go 100 Thieves here. I think 100 Thieves in best of ones especially is actually gonna do pretty well, and they're seeded directly into group stage. Like this team has good early games, and that's really important in best of ones. Next, PSG, I think they fell off a little bit. I mean, straight up, I think Doggo is just better than Unified. That was my interpretation when I watched finals. So I think PSG is actually weaker now than they were at MSI with their main roster. I think their main roster is actually worse. And then C tier, I'm gonna put Rogue. Rogue to me, it just looks like they're going down the it feels like their mental is completely boomed. Maybe they'll recover it going into Worlds, but this team, I just have no confidence in them actually performing when it matters. It feels like when the pressure is on, this team just gets worse and worse. I don't know. I just realized something. Maybe this makes me actually change this. Okay, so what I am now thinking about is the fact that 100 Thieves literally is getting griefed by visa issues right now. So maybe they end up just like being the worst NA team at Worlds because they literally just don't have their team at Worlds, and Closer is such an important part of their team. Holy, because I'm kind of just doing this based off like how they played at their region domestically, but now I'm thinking about the fact that they have visa issues and they're not even scrimming. So I think 100 Thieves actually belongs here based off how they played domestically, but I'm going to move them to the end of C tier purely because of visa issues. That's what I'm going to end up doing. Last team in C tier for me, Hanwha Life Esports, Chovy Life Esports. Chovy is good for sure. Morgan is not good. That's for sure as well. And I just don't have many hopes for this team. Like maybe they could outperform 100 Thieves because of like, I mean, maybe they could outperform 100 Thieves just because Chovy is so fucking good. But actually, Hanwha Life would actually match up pretty well into 100 Thieves because even though Morgan is weak, Someday is also pretty weak from 100 Thieves. So they could actually probably beat 100 Thieves, but whatever. I think that they're a worse team overall. I think that versus the field, Hanwha Life is worse. And my last two, TL, C9. Pretty obvious reasons here. I mean, I'm not super big on C9. Maybe they can do something internationally. Maybe they've learned from MSI, but don't have that much hope. It feels like C9 has like a major disconnect in their team between how Fudge wants to play games out and how the rest of the team wants to play games out. And it's not even that one of them is right all the time. And it's not even that Fudge is right all the time or the rest of the team is right all the time. It just feels like when Fudge wants to freeze the lane, which he does often, I know it's a meme, but he does it often. Like if he loses a lane or he gets ganked, they take the top turret and he wants to freeze the lane, it never feels like C9 responds well to it. So it feels like they play two different games all the time. I just feel like C9 has just different viewpoints on the game and it's like really hard for them to actually win. So yeah, there it is. You'd put Dom1 over FPX and EDG. I mean, bro, I don't know how you can look. If anything, you could do this. You could do this. That's if anything. You can do EDG first because they won LPL. Or you could do this. There's no way you could say that Dom1 looked better domestically than the teams in LPL finals. Like the team that looked the absolute best in the final series was EDG. This is what you can do. You can do this or this. One of these two. You definitely cannot do this. You can't do this, bro. Dom1 had so many bad games, actually. Yeah, I'm going to keep it this way. All right, that's my tier list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There you go. That's it.